wasting money on cures. Forgot how to fix myself. They say that time is free. Then why is it so precious? Oh, I'll say memories in my head, like Polaroids on walls. They remind you to look ahead. Time is running out. Time is running out. Lately I've lost my track. I've sailed the deeper seas, hoping to find something to bring back better times. Oh, I'll say memories in my head, like Polaroids on walls. They remind you to look ahead. But time is running out. 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 Time is running. Time is running out. But time is running out. What if my best days are over? They can be over. They can't be over now. Time is running out. What if my best days are over? They can't be over now. Time is running out. Time is running out. Time is running out.
Okay, good afternoon. It's a beautiful sunny afternoon here in Yorkshire. I noticed that some people in the live stream are actually sat in a park watching the live stream. I hope you got the sunscreen to hand. And thank you for joining us wherever you are, at home, in the park, in Greg's, or whatever it is, Starbucks. Welcome to our live stream, a day ahead of paper one. So micro is almost upon us, and we've got a quick live stream today. We're going to do some multiple choice questions, do some analysis and application and evaluation of market failure and intervention, and then spend a bit of time looking at market structures. By the way, it's just a warm-up to reassure and to give you some confidence ahead of the paper. We're not in the business of question spotting. That's a mug's game, and B, it's just ridiculous, quite honestly. Revise the spec, place your strengths, read the questions. I've got some exam advice for you in this session, and do the best you can. That's all we ask, and that's all anybody can ask of you. You just do your best, and you'll be fine. Now, we got literally nearly 2,000 people in the live stream today, so lots of new people. So welcome to you. This is our 35th live stream of the year, and we've probably got another 10 or 15 to go before paper 3 is over. If you're subscribed to the channel, you can contribute to the chat window. So if you want to make a contribution and maybe see your name and comment appear on screen, then please just subscribe. But if not, lots of people just follow along. Keep an eye on the chat window because there are some amazing students. We have a tremendous community. We call them the Tutor Student Collective. And I think they're in good form ahead of the papers today. We're going to start with the Tutor live stream challenge. So we've got 10 multiple choice questions for you. All of which are on the spec. They haven't been asked before. They're microeconomics. Now, Jim has very kindly agreed to take in all of your papers at the end and mark them. Failing that, if you can mark your own homework, please. Let's see who gets the Tutor 2 live stream trophy for 2025. Here we go. Dan says 10 out of 10 incoming. Well, Dan, You get the first question right. Here we go. Post the answers in chat. A firm with a downward slope in the demand curve finds that marginal revenue becomes negative beyond a certain output. What does this imply about elasticity at that point? So if you're with us for the first time, as many will be, then just post the answer in the chat window. Or if you don't want to be a subscriber, just write the answer down and mark your own homework. What do we think? Answers coming in. Majority saying A, which is interesting. It's not A. Marginal revenue becomes negative. This is actually quite an interesting question. It does appear a lot on multiple choice. Here's the right answer. The answer is D. Demand is price inelastic. Yeah, when marginal revenue is positive, then demand is price elastic. A cut in price increases revenue. When marginal revenue is negative, you moved into a price inelastic situation. So the answer to the first question is D. Quite a few people are saying they're cooked. Well, that's quite a hard opening question. Here we go. Question number 2. A government subsidy increases the output of a good with a positive consumption externality. What is the expected allocative effect? So what do we think for question number 2? Lots of answers coming through, including from our regulars, Ben Gomersall and Georgia and Leah and Gemma, Toby and Ofi coming through. Most people choosing B. Let's double check. Yes, it is B. Now, can you visualize the diagram you might draw tomorrow for that? Positive consumption externality. Can you visualize what you would draw? A subsidy, of course, might bring down the private cost so that the increase in consumption takes you towards the social optimum. Well done, everybody. Question number 3. If a firm pays a wage above the market clearing level to increase productivity, what's that an example of? So what do we think here? A little bit of labour market economics. Businesses, a good example here would be Aldi, the supermarket, paying a wage above the market clearing level. And with the express aim of increasing labour productivity. What's that an example of? Now, there's a couple of plausible distractors here. And it's a firm choosing to pay a wage, not necessarily a statutory pay floor. Ben says that Aldi increased wages 4 times in 1 year. Ben, that is fantastic application if you get a question on living costs. And the answer is B, efficiency wage theory. This is the idea that firms pay above the going rate. Let's say in supermarkets, the going rate is, I don't know, £12 an hour. You might pay £14 an hour because workers become more productive. Psychologically, they're better off. Fewer people leave, so you avoid all the costs of hiring and retraining, and you get a more loyal, productive workforce. You also get less absenteeism. Really good. Okay. Question number 4. The cross elasticity of demand between 2 goods is minus 1.5. What does this imply? What is it? Cross price elasticity minus 2 goods is minus 1.5. What does that imply? So a minus figure for cross price elasticity. Answers are flooding in, as you can see on our chat window. Banana Cheese and JT Galaxy, one of our great contributors, and Ben and Harry Butler. The answer is C. Yeah, good. And again, that's a classic multiple choice, isn't it? You're given, just look to see the not just the coefficient, but the sign. If it's negative, 2 goods are complements. And minus 1.5 suggests they're fairly close complements. Question number 5 coming up. Firm's marginal revenue is 0. What does this mean? Firm's marginal revenue is 0. What does this mean? It relates to business objectives. And all of you getting the right answer, I think, to this one. The answer is A. Yeah, correct. Nice question coming in on the chat window. Geoff, what's the difference between macro and micro? The answer is I don't know. I've only been teaching subject 40 years, and I really do need to find out. Right, we're halfway through. Can you post the scores on the doors, please, on our 10-question challenge? So let's have a look on the chat window. What are we doing in terms of our scores here? So Tutor Jew Glaze has 5. Wow, post the answers in that chat window. Ricky's got 5. George Mitchell has 5 as well. Well done. A lot of people with 4. Naga has 5. Well done. And Luke Moretti has 5. Okay, let's go into our second bunch of questions. What we've got 10 micro questions that have not been asked before. Okay. Question number 6. Which of these is an example of a barrier to exit in an industry? Okay. Noah says, nothing better to do with your Sunday, Geoff. Noah, that is correct. I have nothing better to do with my Sunday than prepare a live stream for you, deliver it, and then go have a lie down. Barrier to exit. What do we think here? Barrier to exit. Answers are coming flying through. Interesting variations here. So this is, you need to be careful to distinguish between barrier to entry and barrier to exit. This is almost like a cost of leaving a market. Okay, so it affects contestability. Daniel and one or two others. Let's pick up Reese Bartlett, who was worried before the live stream started I was going to throw new theories at Reese a day before the exam. I wouldn't do that, Reese. The answer is C, loss of brand loyalty on closure. Yeah, so it's sometimes called loss of brand equity. So if a business closes down, you annoy the hell out of some customers who've relied on you. They might have bought, for example, I don't know, a TV or something, or a car, and they can't get the spare parts anymore. So often if you leave a market, there is a loss of brand equity, brand value, and that can be quite a substantial cost for business when they try and move into other markets. Ewan says, Geoff, are you planning on doing more than MCQs? Ewan, the answer is yes. Okay, yep, good stuff. Somebody's saying, what about A, causing sunk cost, Georgina? Well, a high setup cost is potentially, it's a barrier to entry because you got to cover those costs. Depends, Georgina, if those costs are recoverable in whole or in part if you leave the market. Here we go, question number 7. 10-question challenge today. Which of the following is not an example of third-degree price discrimination? I like this question. Which of the following is not an example of third-degree price discrimination? Cheap train tickets to pensioners, myself included. Low prices to students. High prices for last-minute bookings. Low entry fees for kids at museums. And I think most of you got this. Well, then I think price discrimination is a topic. The answer is C, yeah, price discrimination. Third degree, you've got to have a clearly defined group of consumers or segment. Now, people who are paying last minute have a price inelastic demand, so they pay more, but it's not a clearly defined group. Hania says, Geoff, you can't be that old. Hania, don't think that for a minute. Question number 8. 3 to go. Oh, I like this one. If 2 local petrol firms are engaged in repeated games, game theory, and can monitor each other's prices, what's most likely to happen over time? What do we think here? 2 local petrol firms engaged in repeated games, in other words, a bit of game theory. They can monitor each other's prices. What's most likely to happen? What do we think here? Answers flying in. Quite a few differences in people. A lot of people saying A. That's probably unlikely if you understand the kick demand curve. And game theory suggests it's not A. Reese and Ruben and Georgina and Harry have all got the right answer. It is D. Yeah, I think in a lot of markets there is tacit collusion, price leadership, price matching, that kind of stuff. It gives the illusion of competition, actually, but it's tacit collusion. If you get a question on oligopoly tomorrow, please do have a think about collusion and tacit agreements. It's really hard to. Oh, thank you for that. Thank you for that super chat. That gets me a sandwich from Greg's. Okay, so question number 9, penultimate question. We have nearly 3,000 people with us this afternoon. So if you're joining us live, subscribe to the channel. Now, this is a tricky one. The product's income elasticity of demand, YED, is minus 1.5. If average incomes increase by 4%, what's the expected percentage change in demand? What's the percentage change in demand here? Minus 1.5, income goes up by 4%. Now, I'm really pleased to see a lot of right answers here. Okay, and the answer is D, minus 6%. Well done, because it's negative. It's an inferior good. So as incomes go up, then demand. As incomes go up, sorry, demand goes down. Excellent answers. Well done. Superb stuff. Right, okay, well done. One more question. A monopolist faces the following. Price equals £60. Marginal cost equals £20. Marginal revenue equals £20. What should the firm do to maximise profits? Price is 60, marginal cost is 20, marginal revenue is 20. What should the firm do to maximize profit? What do we think? Answers are coming through. It's a monopoly, it's a monopolistic demand curve. And the answer is C. Yep, MC equals MR. There's no reason for the monopolist to change their output. There we go, 10 questions, everybody. Can you add up your own scores? Don't hand them into Jim and the production team. It'll take them an age to mark your papers. Can we please have scores on the doors? Lots of 8s, good stuff. Finn Bennett's got 10. Wow, loads of answers coming through here. Well done to Matthew Harrison. Ollie F says he's got 11. Well done, Ollie. Let's hope. That, by the way, I lost my job as an examiner. I was so enthusiastic as an examiner many years ago. I always used to give 110% to my job. Ted Scott's got 10. Well done to Ted and Tom. Ben, a couple of people saying you got 12, which is quite impressive in anybody's language. Great stuff. Let's move on. Thank you for joining in our challenge. I think everybody's now in the live stream. We're going to do a bit of application and also a bit of evaluations. Now, here are 6 interventions that are in the news that could well be a kind of exam style question. We're not question spotting, but these are interesting interventions linked with market failure. Over to you on this one. There's no time or clock. Let's spin the wheel first of all. So we're looking for economic justifications for a particular policy, and the policy is plastic packaging. So let's see what comes up in the chat window. If this question comes up, the economics of a plastic packaging tax, the tax came in 2022. As far as I know, it hasn't yet appeared on exam scripts. But it's a really important tax affecting any business that uses plastic packaging. Now, if the packaging you're using is less than 30% recycled, then the tax is over £200 per tonne deadweight of plastic. So what are we going for here? We'll post a few answers as they come through. James Faulkner saying reduces negative external production from waste and dumping. Good answer from James. MV talks about plastic packaging being thrown away as a negative externality from consumption. Rahima talking about reducing external costs. Some good answers. Yeah, lots of you bringing those points in. So the key here is to be able to have at least 2 good points. Daniel 27, plastic is overconsumed in a free market. Tax attempts to internalise the cost of the negative externalities, reducing consumption to the social optimum level. Excellent stuff. Really good stuff. Lots of answers coming through on the chat window. What else have we got here? TVK raises tax revenue for the government in order to provide subsidies for users to move from plastic to paper or sustainable resources. Nice use there from TVK of the use of the tax. Really good stuff from Rob. Some good application. Okay, so my points were as follows. This is an important tax. We have covered it in a live stream, by the way. The plastic packaging tax is to internalise externalities. Can you visualise the diagram you might draw there? Correcting market prices. Linked points. It should, in theory, stimulate innovation in recycling technology and recycling investment. They've introduced the tax. The tax kicks in after 30% recycling. So if you have more than 30% recycled, you don't pay the tax. And Coca-Cola, for example, I was drinking a Diet Coke this morning, and the bottle quite clearly said 100% recycled. And so that means they don't pay the tax on the plastic packaging for that product. So it should, in theory, stimulate a derived investment in recycling capacity and technology. Those of you who are familiar with the work of Kate Rayworth and others will know about the circular economy. We'll go through the diagram actually in a second for revision. So the circular economy, reuse, recycle, material efficiency, and as many people are saying, the revenue from the tax can be used for certain purposes. Okay, so this is called hypothecation. We raise, £500 million from the tax. Let's say that money can be spent in a particular way. That's called hypothecation. So that was the question. What does hypothecate mean? It means if you raise a sum of money, the money just doesn't go into the general pot of tax. It goes into something specific. Okay, so it could well be, for example, promoting recycling technologies or recycling facilities in local areas. Hypothecation is a great word to use. And Geo comes in there with a lovely point, contributing towards something such as sugar tax to primary school sports. Thanks, Juno. Yeah, that's a really good example. So thank you for that. Really good. Now, diagram wise, yeah, so this would be, again, it depends what's being taxed. The tax is on plastic packaging. So in the market for plastic, the tax shifts the supply curve to the left. Now, plastic's not the only input in things like ready meals and soft drinks, but it's an input. Price goes up. By the way, a shout out to Mr. Carroll, whose birthday, I think, falls on one of the exam dates this week, one of our great economics teachers. We love our economics teachers. So there's a nice simple diagram showing the effect of a tax. The next slide shows you how you can take it to the next level. So tomorrow, if you get a question on an indirect tax, please remember to draw the demand curve to the y-axis, because then you can show the impact on consumer surplus, for example. And this diagram is better because it shows the impact on tax revenues and potentially a welfare loss. And as I explained in my live streams, you can then develop it. And if you move to the next slide, all I've done there is just drawn a second demand curve. But this time the demand curve is a much more price inelastic demand, in other words, lower elasticity. Now, the reason for drawing that demand curve, D2, is that you can now show that this tax is less effective on quantity. So you go from Q1 to Q3 instead of Q1 to Q2. And this is great evaluation. This is how you can use a diagram to help your evaluation, by just putting in another demand curve and saying, well, actually, if demand for plastic packaging is price inelastic, firms will probably still use it. They'll just pay a higher price. Now, that's bad for the environment, but it means you get more tax revenue. It's a bit of a trade-off. Sandy says, is it not better to do it on two different diagrams? You can do it on two different diagrams. That's fine. I think one diagram is actually quite neat. Emma says, mate, my diagrams are messy enough. Thank you, mate. Wait till you see the next slide. So here are some very quick bits of advice for tomorrow. Look, we know that micro is a lot of diagrams in micro. So tomorrow we'll be drawing diagrams, okay? And diagrams make at least a grade's difference, I think, across the three papers, micro, macro, and synoptic. So, follow the following rules, please. First of all, make your diagrams nice and big, at least a third of a side of A4, possibly half a side. So make your diagrams bigger. Don't try and shoehorn them up into the postage stamp corner of a page. Please don't wrap text around a diagram. It's very hard to mark as an examiner. Always leave the diagram nice and clear and separate. You can annotate for sure, but please don't write a massive text. Okay. SC21 says, if I'm typing, should I label my diagrams and refer to them as text? Absolutely right. Absolutely. Always leave, please, at least 2 lines between diagram and text, and leave 2 lines between each paragraph. Simple reason is it makes it easier for the examiner to read your work, so you're going to get a higher mark if that's the case. And secondly, you might go back to a paragraph, you might think of something during the exam, or you're checking over at the end, you want to add a line in at the end. Just leave plenty of space on that one there. Okay. Ewan says, Geoff, why using the supply and demand instead of private cost and private benefit? You can use either, Ewan, absolutely fine. You'll be credited for both. And also, crucially, label key points. Don't shade them. I mean, shading it's just about okay. It's not very good. If you label key points, you can then put those labeled areas into your diagram. Okay. It says, if we leave big spaces but don't go back to it, will be marked down. No, not at all. No. Okay, so here's a good example of how to draw a diagram. That was the original one on the left-hand side. Here's it's the same question, and you can see the difference here, can't you? It's nice and clear. It's nicely labelled. It's very clearly written, and it'll be very easy to refer to that in the text of your answer. So please, as we'll say a bit later on, please practice diagrams this evening. Okay, let's move on. Let's go back to our application spinner. Let's spin the wheel again, please, Jim. We're looking for economic applications. Oh, okay, another really interesting topic. Now, we have covered all of these 6 on the previous live stream, so we've just chosen 6 more today for our warm-up. Can we please put in the chat window the economic justifications for a consumer subsidy for heat pumps. So this is where the government provides, is it £3,000 or something, for people who want to buy and have installed heat pumps. What do we think? Peter, why makes heat pumps more affordable, especially for low-income households? Really good point, Peter. Thank you for that. Isaac talks about a decrease in CO2 emissions. Really, really good. What else have we got coming through here? Yeah, lots of answers coming through. People talking about lower cost of life-saving healthcare. It's a bit of a stretch from heat pumps to that, but okay. Yeah, some really good answers coming through here. Thank you. So again, we're really hinting here at positive externalities, aren't we? So Joe Novo, one of our great contributors this year, they reduce long-term energy costs, lower carbon emissions in line with net zero targets, and decrease reliance on imported gas, improving energy security. Joe, that is one of the best answers I have seen on any live stream this year. I've been on a lot. Superb answer. Thank you very much. Yeah, can we maybe pick out one more really good answer? What else have we got coming in here? Jude, as energy prices are higher, subsidy consumers the low incomes could leave consumers with a higher proportion of disposable income. Yes, it could. So it increases their effective demand for heat pumps. Really good stuff. Really good. I've gone for the following points. Heat pumps are a low carbon alternative, but with a high upfront cost. So it's almost like a behavioural nudge here that, if you can just take some money off the table with a subsidy, it prompts people to buy them. It's designed to increase uptake, and of course that might in turn increase economies of scale. So if you get a critical mass of people buying heat pumps, installing them, the price should come down if there are sufficient economies of scale. And also it can reduce fuel poverty, which is a major issue, again, if heat pumps are available to lower income families. Okay, brilliant stuff. Let's move on. This time we're going to do a little bit of evaluation. So what we're doing here is just doing market failure and interventions. So can we spin the wheel? And we're looking here for 2 criticisms, please. We can post them in the chat window. 2 criticisms of, okay, minimum unit pricing for alcohol. Over to you. Finn says, can we use pencils for diagrams? Yes, you can. So over to you, minimum unit pricing, a policy introduced in Scotland for alcohol in 2018, if memory serves. It's also being suggested, by the way, that this policy could be brought in for products such as energy drinks and vapes. So Flynn Bob, smiley face dude, says regressive tax on the poorest in society. Really good point. Yep. Any answer, Flynn, which you produced there, which links on stakeholders, inequality. Elasticity for alcohol is perfectly elastic. It does not reduce quantity, just raises prices. Thanks from Sumat. It's good evaluation. Really good. What else have we got coming through? We'll get a couple more answers. A lot of people saying alcohol is addictive, so demand is price inelastic and regressive, which is good. Beer, regressive low-income households have to pay a large proportion of income for alcohol and addictive. Government failure, growth of shadow economy, unrelated alcohol. Yes, well, beer has got 2 really good points there. It could stimulate the growth of unregulated alcohol. And Andreas talking about cross-border effects there, people going to Berwick upon Tweed or something, or Carlisle, to get their cheaper alcohol. Bringing it across the borders, smuggling it across the borders, across the big roundabout outside of Tesco at Berwick. Been there many times. Clum talk about habitual behaviour and addiction may lead to an ineffective tax and some unintended consequences. So a nice bit of behavioural economics there from Clum. Cameron says that elasticity matters. It certainly does, and particularly when it comes to elasticity of demand. Some great answers. Well done, everybody. Here are my points. The impact on dependence is questionable, and there's unintended consequences. There's some evidence, by the way, that in Scotland, the price of cheap alcohol has gone up, and heavy drinkers have just continued to drink the same amount of alcohol. Of course, that leaves them with less money to spend on other things, including diet, including food. So that one of the unintended consequences is that dietary effects may have been negatively affected, and some consequences for children's nutrition outside of school. Regressive effects, I think, is a really important point. Minimum pricing disproportionately affects low-income households, and that includes people who don't have a drink problem, they're moderate drinkers. And I think a really important point is that if you bring in a minimum price per unit, it's not a tax, so you're not creating any revenue. Okay, Giles Cunningham comes in with a great question: why would Scotland use a minimum price instead of a per unit tax? Well, thank you for your question, Giles. It's a great question. The answer is they thought it would have it sends more of a signal to the market, and in particular, they wanted to address the bottom end of the market, the really cheap alcohol piled high in supermarkets, discount alcohol. But it doesn't raise much in the way of tax, and the revenue really goes to retailers and producers. There's almost like a windfall effect. So Giles is hinting at a really good debate. Well, welcome to microeconomics, about which policies are most effective, efficient, and equitable. Okay, let's try one more because we're doing so well on this. Spin the wheel again. One more application spinner for today. Now, can you give me 2 evaluation points, please? About Help to Buy. So this was the government scheme to give interest-free loans to try and encourage people to move into the housing market. I think you get an interest-free for 3 or 4 years. What can we think of in terms of evaluation points? Archie Mullins comes in with a lovely phrase that it doesn't affect the root problem. Archie, I love that idea that fundamentally Help to Buy is really I think you're hinting at ineffective. Matt Thorley does not address supply issues. Really good point there from Matt. Yeah, okay, superb stuff. Yeah, xenomorpha. It addresses through demand side policy what is essentially the supply side problem. Yeah, excellent stuff. And I think you're really getting this. Again, this is probably it's a bit niche, Help to Buy. It's one of those policies in the housing market. You might well have revised rent controls and brownfield subsidies and that kind of stuff, tax relief for small builders. Keep an eye on the chat window, everybody. We've got thousands in the live stream today, and the answers are absolutely brilliant. I must say, as the answers come through, I just want to say a big thank you, actually, to everybody who's come to our live streams this year. We love doing them. We absolutely love doing them. But the quality of the answers is absolutely stunning. I'm sure that will show through tomorrow. Cheetah 2 Glazier. Jim and Geoff, please can I have a shout out? It's my birthday tomorrow. It would make my day. You're so inspiring and handsome. That's a message to Jim there from Cheetah 2 Glazier. Well, happy birthday to you. I presume it's your 18th. What better way to celebrate your 18th birthday than to sit a microeconomics paper? If Carlsberg did birthdays, that's what they do. So many, many happy birthdays. And a nice supportive message there from Ollie Jones. Okay, what have we come up with? This Help to Buy scheme. I mean, I'm not a big fan of this scheme, by the way. It basically artificially inflates house prices. It increases demand, but it doesn't necessarily expand supply. It's also limited to new build homes. And oftentimes the real solution is to renovate old homes, existing properties, reconvert old properties. And there's a hint of subprime about this. Some buyers are struggling when the interest-free period comes to an end. So there is a major issue with the kind of overselling, misselling of Help to Buy. Some information there. Brilliant. Here we go. So let's move on. We've done market failure intervention. We're just going to do a bit of work on market structures in the time we have together, and then I'll take a few questions. Just very quickly, thinking about tomorrow. I won't be doing any things tonight. Tonight's for revision, and then tomorrow I'm locked in literally into my examining. In paper 1, you will always get higher analysis and evaluation marks if you bring efficiency and welfare into your answers. Now, that's not always easy, but if you get an opportunity, please do that. So show these in diagrams. Consumer surplus, for example, the impact of monopoly pricing or price collusion. If you get questions on market structures, judge a market on a case-by-case basis. Don't jump in and assume every business is the same as the theoretical model. It's always best to judge markets by the actual behaviour of firms We're going to mention Amazon in a second, actually, as a case study, rather than the theoretical model. And if you get a chance, challenge assumptions. Firms are not always profit maximizers; they're profit seekers, profit satisficers. And monopoly doesn't always charge a low wage. Challenge assumptions if you get the opportunity. Okay. Let's quickly look just finally at market structures, and I've got 3 or 4 questions for you. Over to you on this one. This is quite important. A minute on the clock. Can you give me 2 reasons why allocative efficiency is unlikely in a monopoly or an oligopoly? Over to you. Why is allocative efficiency unlikely in a monopoly or an oligopoly? Thanks to Alex Lynch there for a really, really good answer. Superb, Alex. Well done. Some really good answers coming through, everybody. The Tutor 2 Collective is bang on it. So this is really key. I mean, monopoly, oligopoly, obviously 2 market structures you'll have revised. And it's often the case, not always the case, that allocative efficiency is worse under monopoly, oligopoly. Mia comes in with a lovely point. In oligopoly, there could be tacit collusion to keep prices high, straying away from allocative efficiency. Yes, that's a really good point. I've gone for the following. So barriers to entry. Monopoly firms can use their market power to raise price well above marginal cost and average cost to generate supernormal profits. And then crucially, those profits persist in the long run. They use barriers to entry, including trademarks, patents, IP protection, to allow profits to persist. And I think Mia's point is my point there. Firms with an oligopoly might be engaged in overt or tacit collusion. And that's cartels, of course. The cartel may agree to keep prices above what you'd expect in a more contestable market. Good stuff there. Move on to the next question. And this is really quite important. A number of you asked me to do a session on competition policy. Well, we'll do a little bit of work on it now. Can you choose your industry of your choice and give me 2 policies that might be used to control monopoly power? So have a think about an industry of your choice. And then can you jot down in the chat window, let's see what comes up, 2 policies that might be used to control monopoly power. 1 minute on the clock. This is all really about competition policy, about government intervention. Tom's chosen Ofwat in the water industry. Thanks, Tom. Charlie's decided that one policy would be to nationalise Thames Water. It's a perfectly valid argument. Doesn't change their monopoly, but it's a means of control. Industry of choice. Rowan says, my school never told me about knowing an industry. This was mainly for Edexcel, Rowan. You need to revise some industries of your choice. JT Galaxy. Okay. That's more to JT's point about previous question about oligopoly and efficiency. Yeah, Kai. And Kai's been one of our regular contributors over the course of the live streams. Fantastic student. CMA intervention by splitting up incumbent firms. Yeah, well, it's very rare, by the way, that the CMA splits up firms. The US Competition Authority has done that in the past, but the CMA tends not to do that, although they can intervene with merger and takeovers and require some divestment of parts of a business. Keep an eye on the chat window, everybody. There's some amazing answers coming through. It's almost hard to keep up, actually. What else have we got coming up here? We choose one more. A lot of people here talking about price caps. Price capping on Thames Water to ensure productive efficiency takes place, that firms are charging lower prices. Really good stuff there, yep. Excellent stuff. What have I gone for? Oh, and here, a nationalised should become allocatively efficient. So a lot of you gone for nationalisation. I haven't gone for that. I've gone for the following 2 points. Just for revision, I've gone for price regulation and market entry. So price capping is definitely worth revising. Ofgem, for example, the energy price cap. That wasn't really a cap on the price of energy itself. It was a cap per unit of energy. So if you had a big household with a lot of kids or elderly relatives with high energy needs, the bills were often very, very high. Ofcom, for example, regulates the prices that BT Openreach can charge the broadband internet firms, such as TalkTalk and Sky, to access the superfast broadband network. And the second point is promoting market entry. So, for example, deregulation, subsidies, occasionally easier licensing. I've chosen rail as my industry there. I'll come on to Prav's point in a second about productive and allocative efficiency. If you take the rail industry, if you think about the East Coast Line, Grand Central and Hull trains and Luma trains are access operators. So they've been allowed to compete on the main service with LNER. So there is actually quite a bit of competition on the East Coast Line. I think Avanti will have competition on the West Coast Line. So really good example there is the regulator giving the license to access operators to come in and compete, often at a local level, to create some competition. So it's a really, really good way. I'm conscious of time, everybody, and I'm going to leave some minutes for questions about the exams and things. So let's crack on. Oh yeah, sorry, there's Prav's point. Geoff, how can a nationalised natural model be both productively and allocatively efficient at the same time? Well, it can be. You can charge price equals marginal cost at a very, very high output level to achieve economies of scale. It's unlikely, and keep in mind, Prav, that it's never one output. I mean, the output of the water industry isn't X. The output of the water industry is how much water is used. So it's not a single output. The key is the direction of travel in the industry. Okay, good stuff. Oh yeah, here's a really, now a lot of students are telling me, oh yeah, I'm choosing Amazon. I've done a lot of work on Amazon, and we've just launched a little of an application short on Amazon, on TikTok and on YouTube. So here's a chart showing Amazon's net sales revenue since 2007. Just updated it recently. Quite interesting. You can see the seasonality there in Amazon. The fourth quarter is huge for Amazon. So here's a question for you. I just want to practice your evaluation skills ahead of tomorrow. Is the dominance of Amazon Inc. good for consumers in the long run? What can you come up with? Have a go. So this is our penultimate question on our live stream today. What do we think? Is the dominance of Amazon good for consumers in the long run? This will be a really good 25 mark. No, it wouldn't be phrased that way, a 25 mark question. The costs and benefits of huge firms. Great question. Millie comes in. They've got monopoly and monopsony power. I think that is key to the whole debate, actually, Millie. Thank you for that. Wow, what a series of answers coming through here on the chat window. Amazing. Nick Balfour comes in with a really interesting point there. If we can find Nick's answer. So Millie talks about monopoly and monopsony power. What else have we got here? There's Nick. Short-term good, long-term harm. Nice approach, Nick. Lower prices and convenience, but long-term monopsony power and consumer data dominance. Wow. Let's just take a step back there. Well done, Nick. Thank you for that answer. Yeah, and this is what I was really hoping for, this kind of short-term, long-term dynamic. Lots of you coming in with economies of scale. Henry Jack's making some great points about dynamic efficiency, risk of monopsony power, supplier shutdown. It's a really interesting question about the relative bargaining power of Amazon versus their suppliers. So thank you to Henry and to Nick. I've gone one against 1 for in support just the everything store, Amazon's vast product selection, clearly economies of scale, hyper efficient delivery services. And also, I think really you've got to take us. That's what the point I was saying a few minutes ago. Judge a business by what it does, not what the theory says. Amazon last year was one of Britain's biggest investors in renewable energy, and it has made huge steps in investing in its workforce and moving towards sustainable packaging. I mean, it has. Okay, so Amazon does have a pulse, and it does have a conscience. Interesting. Then the arguments against, yes, Millie's points about monopoly and monopsony. It's one of those businesses which straddles both. Okay, and in theory, that can stifle competition. In the long run, Nick Balfour's point, short-term good, long-term harm. Perhaps fewer choices for the consumer. Consider the impact on the high street. And also, of course, with any multinational, consider the issues of tax avoidance. Legal tax avoidance. Does Amazon pay its full taxes? Great stuff. Okay, last question. Which market structure do you think in the long run is best for economic efficiency and welfare? 1 minute. Let's see what our 3,000 subscribers can say today. Which market structure do you think in the long run is best for economic efficiency and consumer welfare? George doesn't sit on the fence. George, he says monopolistic competition for sure. Aaron's channel, oligopoly that's contestable and well regulated. Wow, what an answer. Cameron agrees, a contestable oligopoly that can reinvest the abnormal profits. Great answers, Abby. A Schumpeter would argue a regulated monopoly. Can we get a few more? These are brilliant, by the way. These are amazing. Matt McCann saying a non-collusive oligopoly. Maxine says we can all agree perfect competition is not the one. Jamie thinks monopoly competition, consumers have high levels of sovereignty and it's easy for firms to leave and join the market. And also, Jamie, get a lot of product differentiation, a lot of choice. Really good. Fantastic stuff. Yeah, really good. Yeah, I think the reason for asking this question is at some point you will be writing tomorrow about welfare and efficiency in markets, either in market failure or market structures. Okay. And it's important to take a step back. So my argument would be, Wordsworth, I would go for a contestable oligopoly, but I'm using a word, hedging word, there might be best in the long run. It's called a hedging word. The presence of actual and potential competition to keep prices low. Successful businesses can and do make profit and produce at scale. There's nothing wrong with making profit, by the way. Profit has a purpose. Okay, produce a surplus has value, particularly if it's reinvested, if you pay good wages and pay your taxes. Contestable markets rely on the credible threat of entry by potential competitors to ensure efficient outcomes. So I think an oligopoly with a degree of contestability, I think, is the best one, because you've got enough competition and you've got scale. And ultimately, that is what keeps prices low, in my opinion, in my judgment. Great stuff. Now, okay, just ahead of the exams tomorrow. Do we have one more slide there, Jim? I think we had one slide just at the end. Yeah. Oh, sorry. Yes. Two bits of advice. This is super important. Thanks, Jim. Our production team. Hats off to them, by the way. Yeah. So look, don't worry about the chart. It shows the average cost of motor insurance. I thought I'd put this on the slide because I know some of you have learned to drive, and you might be facing some pretty hefty insurance bills in the next 18 months, 24 months. If there's data in the charts and the tables, and by the way, there will be, there must be data in your answer. The one thing I would ask of you tomorrow, other than just do your best, is please put data from the extracts, the charts, and the tables in your daily response answers. So important to examiners. We don't, a lot of students miss out on application marks. Ed says, does it have to be from charts and tables? Can it be data of the extracts? All Ed. Charts, tables, and extracts. Okay? They're there for a reason. If you miss them out, you're just simply not going to get the application marks. Okay? Now, ahead of tomorrow, just briefly before I take my questions, Do spend a bit of time today practicing your key diagrams. Revise all the types of market failure. Revise efficiency related to market structures. And that's one of those kind of go-to topics that covers such a broad area. Do, if you get a chance, plan your 25 mark essays on key topics. I know many of you have been doing that. Top up your application on key markets in industries, particularly if you're Edexcel, where you have to think about industry of your choice. Because we know, and this is true, by the way, and I've already, if you read the exams report for this year, I know what it's going to say. The best answers use real world examples and evidence and don't rely just on pure theory. Right, I have left 5 minutes for questions. We're not question spotting, we're not topic spotting. Jim and the team in the office and the studio will put some questions up and I'll do my best to answer. So, Juwin, what's a hedging word? Hedging word, Juwin, is a word like might, could, possibly, instead of will or must. So those kind of hedging words in a little bit uncertain, something might happen, this could lead to, as opposed to this will lead to. Because in economics, it's often the case that something is, it's never always, is it? It's never must. Okay. Hussein, what's the highest mark you can get at the 25 marker without using a diagram? Impossible to say, but instinctively, probably around 14 out of 25. Somewhere in that range should be capped. If you're not using diagrams in the 25 marker, you're not really meeting the demands of the question. I mean, that is not the answer, but instinctively, my mindset is that a diagram without, an essay without diagrams is going to be capped somewhere around half marks or 50, 60%. Application. Well, honey, I couldn't have put it better myself. Now, the key to this, everybody, just to reassure you, is that in the data response paper, all the data, all the application you need is in the extracts. You don't need to bring in anything else. You can, of course, but don't do that at the expense of what is in the extracts. In the essays, yeah, you have to bring in your own real world knowledge. That's doing economics. It's a bit like doing English without reading any set texts. You should have done some reading on industries and markets. But in the data response, for example, AQA, once you've chosen which context question you're going to do, everything you need is in the extracts. So the skill is to get that highlighter pen out and to find the data and the evidence and the arguments that will be useful. D says, can you make up application? No. Next question. So Jim is in our team. Jim is in our studio, picking out the questions here as we... what have we got for a couple more questions coming up? Jessica Reed says, can I choose 2 industries for my 25 marker? That would be an Edexcel 25 marker. If it says industry of your choice, very strong advice is to choose 1 industry. JT Galaxy, are there any other key industries other than trades, railways, water, steel to keep an eye on? Gosh, who knows? I mean, contestable markets, obviously. I'm a big fan of industries such as the parcel courier industry, low-cost gyms, that kind of thing. But the utilities, I think, would be definitely well worth revising. How much do we describe the diagrams we draw? James, good question, actually. A well-drawn, developed diagram is a standalone. You don't have to describe every nut and bolt, every slope and line. So just, phrases like, as my analysis diagram shows, a rising cost leads to an increase in profit, maximizing price, etc. If the diagram is well drawn, you don't need to describe it in full because you haven't got time. Do you recommend basing your responses on the extracts or trying to find data in the extracts to support your points? Interesting question. Well, you read the questions first and then you obviously scan the extracts and you draw on those extracts for your application. So you read the questions first, find out what the key, you bust the question, see what the question demands, and go back to the extracts. Cameron says, how best can we write an evaluation at top levels? How are there specific sentence starters? There's not specifics, but I think, Cameron, we actually did a session last week, we're probably worth watching, on tips for evaluation, and I went through 8 approaches to evaluate it. I think that'd be a really good thing to watch just for 20 minutes this evening. Probably I've got a bit of a cold at the moment. Next question coming up. How long should chains of analysis be? Again, there's no hard and fast rule here. For the 25 mark questions, you'd expect a chunky paragraph with some developed reasoning, perhaps 4, 5, 6 links in the chain. It's not 7 or 8, just as long as you build an argument. And by the way, there's a lot of formulas that people write. This is how to create a paragraph. If an answer is well written, and if an examiner can understand it, and if it's in context, and if it answers the question, they're not looking for really precise, logical chains of reasoning. Okay, if it's a well-written answer, I will credit it fully. Okay, so if you've got a paragraph with 4 or 5 sentences in and it makes sense to me, it's absolutely fine. The key really, and I think I wanted to take a little step back here. When you're marking exams, it's all about the quality of the written English, the quality of the analysis and the evaluation and the application. And this is why we mark to levels for longer answers. We like to read good answers and give them appropriate credit. So if you flow, I know, for example, we've got a lot of history students here today and students doing politics and English and what have you. Economics isn't necessarily their main subject, but they have a way of writing which flows and it's fluent and coherent, and that's why it comes across well in exams. So either no hard, but maybe 4 or 5 sentences, linked sentences is fine. Oh, great question from Alex Lynch. Can I abbreviate? Will the examiner understand like SMP? Yes, we will. So don't worry about that. Got 3 or 4 minutes for questions, everybody. If you make spelling mistakes, are you marked down for it? No, you're not. Is it all right as long as it's readable, makes sense? Yes. So if your spelling's a bit ropey, that's R-O-P-P-E-Y, then don't worry about it. We're not English examiners, we're economics scripts. A question from Anna, who came to our grade booster. It was fantastic to meet her group. If the question is draw the short run shutdown point, should we draw the AVC curve above AR or below? Quite honestly, it doesn't matter. But if you're drawing perfect competition, Anna, draw the price below the AVC, below the shutdown point, and draw a price at minimum AVC. So the key will be to draw the shutdown point at minimum AVC. I think we did a video on shutdown point yesterday. It's on YouTube. Cheryl says, if you have bad handwriting, will the examiner just give you low marks, or will they keep passing it on to someone? Okay. Right, okay. This is something that people need to understand. If it's really bad handwriting, do we pass it on to somebody else? No, we don't. We just do the best we can. So if your handwriting is particularly poor, then it's a hindrance to the examiner, and so nothing much we can do about it. We're not going to spend an hour trying to read. There's still about drawing diagrams in pencil. You choose how you draw your diagrams. I mean, if you've got a nice thick H2 pencil, it should be absolutely fine. I mean, pen's probably better. Okay, Geoff, do you think 25 marks for Edexcel need judgment paragraph at the end or not? Yes, I do. You can get to level 3 for sure with 2 evaluation paragraphs without a final reason judgment, JT. The final reason paragraph is probably the 8th or the 9th mark, depending on the quality of the previous evaluation points. If you've written 2 really good evaluation points, you can get 8 out of 9. In which case, just a really short final judgment gets you the 9th mark. And it'd be a shame to miss it out. Okay. A couple more minutes for questions before we draw a line into our session. How many application points in 25 mark at Excel? Well, we don't award marks for application. In the 25 mark at Edexcel, we award marks according to 4 levels for KA. Knowledge, application, and analysis is marked holistically. We also reward application and evaluation as well. So there aren't separate marks for application in the 25 marker. Again, this is really important to understand. We mark an answer, the examiner marks an answer, and they give it a level. Each paragraph is given a level. Each diagram is given a level. We don't award points for applications, but we do for the 5 and the 8 markers. Okay, so it's levels-based approaches from the 10, the 12, the 15, and the 25. There aren't marks for application. But what we do know is if you write a pure theoretical answer, you're capped at certain levels. Okay, brilliant. Jim, all right. It says we're done. All the best, everyone, from Jim. By the way, just a quick hat tip, and big thanks to Jim and Lucy and Ollie and the team in the production office over the year, running our live stream, often late in the evening. Utterly brilliant. Well done, everybody. Just a few final words from me. Most of all, stay calm, stay positive, stay hydrated in this heat, get some good sleep tonight. Just do the best you can tomorrow. It's all you can do. It's the best you can. And if you have a bad day, well, people have a bad day. There's 2 more exams after that. But most important, do your best. Stay calm, keep to the timing, use the extracts, read the questions carefully, and I think you'll be fine. We'll take a couple of days off, Monday, Tuesday. I'll be locked into other things, but then we'll pick up the macro Wednesday, Thursday onwards as we prepare for the 19th. Thank you to everybody for joining. We've had huge numbers today, our biggest ever numbers on live streams. Thanks for joining in. As always, stay healthy, stay happy, stay curious, and see you soon.